2001 Saab Viggen. Ever donate to someone's GoFundMe because if they can't make rent this month, they're gonna be homeless? And the next thing they post is them at the Pennsylvania Renaissance Fair holding their new sword. And you then Google how to get your money back. That's how General Motors felt when they rescued Saab. You've heard about this before on RCR Stories. So GM told Saab, okay, we're gonna give you money and our vehicle platforms, and you get to stay in business, but you have to make a profitable product. And Saab went, yeah. And they blew their entire budget, turning American cars into over-engineered Swedish machines that are too expensive for American showrooms. So GM goes, okay, did you get that out of your system? Good. Let's try this again. Here's a Cavalier-esque body. Just make something like this. And Saab goes, yeah, okay, for real this time. And then they make a sports sedan with a turbo that lags more than Counter-Strike on dial-up. I understand what Saab was trying to do here. They were trying to make a 3 Series competitor for polite people. But considerate people don't buy BMWs. Considerate people want safety and reliability over performance. And reliability is what a Saab Viggen does, counter to what your prejudices against Saabs might be. Back to the turbo. The Viggen's defining characteristic. Hank, would you like your boost now or later?
Well, Peggy, you know how I like delayed gratification.
Everybody has a Hank Hill, but no one has a good Hank Hill.
All right, here we go. Whew! Sorry, that was a bad shift. Oh, BMW. Oh, thank you. Yeah, I am going fast. I went for a 6th gear that doesn't exist. It felt like it was ready for one.
Oh, yeah.
All right, so this is interesting in that it's the first turbocharged sports sedan that gets quieter the more power it makes. That's. I mean, I know that's not really what's happening, but that's a sensation. What's going on here? Oh, they're signaling left. They're signaling right. Oh, good. Let me go on a blind hill. That is awesome. Oh, there's that pull you were talking about. Oh, now she comes alive. Yeah, stay in it. Woohoo! Okay. All right. This is a lot faster than that 9.3 Aero we did before.
Oh, yeah, yep.
It almost feels like the way an electric car doles out the power at low speeds, and as you stay in it, it goes faster.
Oh.
For my arousal, the Saab Viggen is the last gasp of Saab making a true-to-brand product before General Motors took away Saab's allowance and forced it to do math homework instead of playing Roller Coaster Tycoon for 5 hours every night. But the worksheet is 100 questions! 100! That'll take forever. I'll just do it on the bus tomorrow. There's General Motors behind all these switches, but I can't feel the freedom. These are heavy, reassuring, macho, final switches. I want to come in my own mouth. Saab and underdog are synonyms. But that long shot characteristic is part of Saab's charm. If it were a band, it'd be Pitchfork's Artist of the Month in perpetuity. Because for a long time, Saab was the antidote to the barrel-aged degeneracy of an overpriced BMW. It had the stoic, self-assured Swedish attitude baked into it. Saab was different, but confidently so. And they made cars you could feel safe driving, even if you weren't going to show them off at a car show. But over time, Saab gradually declined. And while the downturn predates General Motors, the story of the Viggen is an exercise in Murphy's Law. Viggen was named for the Swedish word for thunderbolt, and it shares the name of the fighter jet. Hey, guess what? We're Saab. We make jets. Don't forget, it's just like the Saab 37. This car was a long brewing project that goes back to the early 90s. Essentially, Saab hired the Tom Wilkinshaw Racing Group, which had a hand in developing the Aston Martin DB7 and the Jaguar XJ220. They developed 2 show cars for Saab that were ready to work the car show circuit by March of 1996, and the response was so good that plans were put into place for a performance Saab 9-3. This would be done by the Saab Special Vehicles Division, with the goal of creating something that could stand next to the 900 Turbo as a prime example of Saab's design performance capabilities. You see, by the late 90s, General Motors had acquired 50% stake in Saab and immediately started throwing its American weight around like an incel whose only allergy is portion control. In a very Ferengi sort of way, profits were all that mattered. And Saab's individuality suffered for it. Saab basically became a badge-engineered subsidiary, losing a lot of the distinctive flair that made Saab worth rooting for in the first place. And this is what happened with the initial development on the Viggen, as all the work that the TWR group put into the project was put on ice. The Special Vehicles team had to fight for the project to see daylight, and so the executives eventually agreed, but with a catch. They had to use the 2.3-liter turbo they were planning for the upcoming Saab 9.5, instead of the performance-tuned 2-liter turbo, which became a problem, since the derivative GM Opel layout of the Saab 9.3 meant that the front end had no answer for the kind of torque the 2.3-liter high-output turbo was putting down. Another rule was that the team wasn't allowed to make any changes to the body, so Saab was limited in their steering and suspension options. Remember, this was a bullet in the chamber that the team was aiming directly at BMWs of the world, so they had to come correct. But how can you come correct when the torque is electronically limited in first and second, so that they're pretty much now just dead gears? You sort of just change what you can and hope it's enough to keep pace with the competition. This is the 2001 model year, and it comes shortly after General Motors acquired the other 50% stake to own Saab outright. It probably wasn't the best sign to have American overlords when you're a quirky Swedish company, but the engineers still clearly put the work in, even if they were restricted from truly making the car they wanted to make. It was like GM just wanted them to be something as inauthentic and easily ignored as a prescription drug commercial.
Is your Mercury Mariner struggling to give you the thrill of an emotional affair with a work colleague? You may have automotive malaise. Automotive malaise is a serious condition that affects 1 in 5 Americans every year. The feeling of inexorable encroachment of time and bills surrounding a car that does nothing to make your life anything but harder. If this sounds like you, talk to your doctor about Saab Viggen. You want something exciting, but not too exciting. Something impressive, but not overpriced and German. If you're someone who has to drive your Uncle Harvey to physical therapy in your clapped-out Nissan Altima while It's Time for the Percolator plays on the radio and a urine stain blossoms and fans out from the front of his Rockport jeans, then take the first exit off the freeway onto the toll road to wellness and ask your doctor if Saab Viggen is right for you. Saab Viggen is a prescription car used to treat adults 25 years of age and older with moderate to severe automotive malaise. Before starting Saab Viggen, your doctor will test if you've performed heliflush or experienced stance-induced NPD, which may flare up and cause serious social problems before, during, and after treatment. Tell your doctor if you've performed heliflush, received a Mopar transplant, sent an email to your family announcing your intention to vote third party, or gone to a Cars and Coffee with 10 or more Imprezas with a roof rack and a rear bumper delete. Don't take Saab Viggen with Chevrolet Monte Carlo SS Dale Earnhardt Special Edition or if you've had certain liver problems. Common side effects include constant O-face, marrow-deep loathing for General Motors, curb rash, a craving for pickled herring, desire to listen to ABBA, Ace of Base, or Opeth, knowledge of what lingonberries are, increase in sexual performance, decrease in desire to tolerate people who ask you to help search for something they lost and then say, "It's not over there," whenever you try to look anywhere, because if you knew where it was, I wouldn't be hunched over like a moron trying to help you find this thing you've lost 1,000 times before already. Talk to your doctor, mechanic, or stranger on Facebook Marketplace and ask if Saab Viggen is right for you.
The overall handling of the Viggen was improved over the 9.3, and it had the Trionic engine management system with the Viggen using the Trionic 7 for the 2001 model on. But I think it was done only ever to draw in Saab enthusiasts. They weren't going to convert anybody new, even if the Trionic system itself was pretty cool for its time. It was basically centralized boost, ignition, and throttle control under a single ECU, so that Saab was essentially standardizing the performance of its cars across various models and conditions. There were clearly benefits to what Saab was trying to do, but they were shackled by GM's limitations, and by competition within the limitless means to surpass them. Even when it came to manufacturing, Saab couldn't catch a break. Production space was extremely limited, and so Saab ended up having to go to Finland for help, asking state-owned industrial operator Falment to help. They agreed. That was the good news. The bad news was that the Falment plant was mostly outfitted for assembling convertible bodies, so the 3-door and 5-door Saab bodies would have to be transported to Finland rather than pressed there directly. This would be fine, if not for the risk of the metal corroding while en route. So Saab delivered unpainted bodies inside dehumidified containers to avoid losing product. It worked, but it cost a fortune in relation to the anticipated cost of production and manufacturing. Sure, the automotive press really liked this car when it hit the market in 1999, but it never sold at a level that justified all the time and expense that went into making it. While it's a car that deserves way more recognition than it got, it would be a lie to say it was punching up to its fullest potential. The Viggen was a prize fighter who was king of his division until he moved up a weight class and got cooked 10 seconds into the first round. Look, this is a great sounding car, with an engine like a hornet's nest that's just been kicked by fuck around and find out Phillip, and the turbo inlet pipe makes it sound even better. It's doing everything it can to make itself bigger and scarier, like a hiker trying to scare off a bear in the mountains by banging his trekking poles together the moment before he gets mauled. The Viggen had this manic slip-and-slide torque steer of a drift car constantly trying to pull you into the apex at least 50% of the time. But it sits on a pool noodle of a chassis, and it runs forged pistons, and while it takes the turbo a while to really do its thing, once it lights, it's fun. To the point that you can't help but wonder how much crazier this car would have been if GM opened the cage door and let Saab run free. To really let Saab be Saab and see how far they could take it in the United States, rather than trying to stuff them into a box of neglected toys next to Opel and Pontiac. But Saab didn't really have a choice but to answer to General Motors, because they didn't have the money to keep pace with their better-funded competition. Like a guy with a thyroid condition and no insurance, Saab didn't have the money to change for the better. And General Motors was already backing away into the hedges like Homer Simpson, looking for a way to wash their hands of this whole Saab business after doing jack all to make it work. Saab couldn't compete with BMWs and Mercedes of the world in anything other than safety. Because of GM, the true performance of Saab could never be anything more than just a mirage.
I'm telling y'all, it's sabotage!
Karma is an airstrike you call on yourself. And I'm sure those bombs are going to land on General Motors, sooner or later at least. If Saab has made being the underdog their brand, then GM has made buyer's remorse theirs. In purchasing a brand they intended to change from the outset, GM set up a self-fulfilling prophecy, and then bailed when their bad ideas did what bad ideas do. General Motors signed up to be the Saab father, and then went on to represent all of the worst culturally received aspects of fatherhood, namely, the abandonment. Leaving when things get too hard is a cliche of fatherhood, because I guess old Jimbo decided he'd rather eat truck stop puss on the weekends again than go see the middle school production of The Crucible. Saab tried to be the dutiful son, doing what Dad said, looking not for acknowledgement of pride, but gratitude, something rare enough for anybody to receive, much less a kid. GM was looking for a certain kind of car to present to the world as an American version of a European-style car. And Saab did its best to satisfy that search. Because there are few better feelings for a kid than finding the thing your parent was looking for but couldn't find in themselves. It's one of the few times a parent can feel true gratitude toward their kid without it being weird. Yet, I'm not sure GM ever felt gratitude for how hard Saab tried to fit into the absurd vision they carved out for the brand. They just discarded them because all the nothing they tried drained their bank of ideas. The tragedy of Saab is that they could have been so much more with the right backing. And the Viggen proves that concept more than just about any other car they made under the GM banner. But a good car isn't enough if that car loses money. And in the land of the almighty dollar, the king is whoever makes the boss look good to the shareholders.